Oh boy, Jubilee have done it again. Trans conservatives versus trans liberals. What could possibly go wrong? Now, the original debate video is almost an hour and a half, and I'll link it down below if anyone wants to go and see the original video, but don't you worry, that's not what we're here for today. This video popped up on my TikTok timeline, funnily enough, and it was one prompt that got me interested in it, and that's what we're going to be reacting to today. But before we get into that, it'd be a bit rude if I didn't introduce myself. Hi, I'm Alex, a trans-masked non-binary person who has had top surgery, but who is not on hormones. And I consider myself and all other non-binary people to be part of the trans umbrella.
Non-binary should not be considered under the trans umbrella.
Oh, this is going to be a fun one. The entirety of the conservative side have stepped forward.
I think that the concept of a transgender umbrella is inherently an issue, right?
Why?
Because when you're talking about something as nuanced, complex, full of social dynamics, medical dynamics, so many things to be considered. When you're talking about a transsexual, you should really be specific, right?
Interesting use of the word transsexual. A lot of trans people don't tend to use that word anymore. I know some people tend to reclaim it, but I will hear her out and we'll see where it goes.
And this entire concept actually of transgender is relatively new.
Is it? Is the entire concept of transgender relatively new? How new are we talking? You know, the human history is a long time, but back in World War II, there was definitely evidence of trans people if the Nazis hadn't burnt everything fucking down. And there have been several examples throughout history of trans and non-binary individuals who were accepted by their societies. Whoa, funny that ancient civilizations accepted trans individuals more than our modern 21st century civilizations do. Carry on. Let's see what else you have to say.
It came about in the 70s or 80s through queer theory, when originally it was about transsexuals, which was considered a medical diagnosis, which was a medical process, and it's defined something very specific.
But you don't have to go through any sort of medical procedures in order to be considered trans, right? It's, right, if I woke up tomorrow and went, do you know what, I feel like a man, I'd be considered that. I don't need to be on hormones. I don't need to have top surgery, even though I've had it. I don't need to then go ahead and get phalloplasty and all of the other sort of types of bottom surgeries that there are. I don't need that. I mean, those people that don't accept me for a man, especially if you don't know what's going on with the UK government, fuck this shit. It's an absolute mess. People around me would accept it. And for those that don't, they don't.
So for me, when I hear that non-binary, which, if I'm to understand correctly, means that
androgynous.
Right, and it means you identify somewhere in between male and female.
Although it might be different for some people, androgyny is completely different to non-binary. Androgyny is more about your expression of gender. Now, gender expression and gender identity are two completely separate things. I am a trans-masked non-binary person, right? So I might decide to, one day, which would be really weird, put on a dress and express myself outwardly as my gender expression as someone more femme. Now, some people might look at me and go, oh, that's a woman. Well, it's not going to be the case, is it? That's not the case. But my gender identity will still be non-binary. Identifying somewhere between male and female isn't necessarily true. Some people identify off that spectrum. Gender fluidity exists, and some people are floating between that spectrum on a daily basis. Like, it just changes. I don't see myself somewhere between male and female. I see myself outside of that, but I don't see myself as a lack of gender, which is what agender is. I think there might be a bit of confusion here, but we'll carry on, we'll listen to what has to be said.
That's not what a transsexual is.
The definition of a trans person is somebody whose body has been altered, or somebody who identifies as a different gender whose body has been altered by hormones or surgery.
And there's two genders, so if you...
So, going back to what I said previously, you don't have to be on any sort of hormones or medication or have any of the surgeries to be trans. Especially, I I mean, it's incredibly difficult if you're going through the NHS within the UK, or B, it's incredibly expensive if you're wanting to go privately. So it's not necessarily an option to medically transition for people. You can socially transition. Hell, that's the first step that most people take, is they socially transition. They test out a new name, they test out binding perhaps, they test out new pronouns. That is an example of a social transition, so that people around them start to become familiar and start knowing who the real them is. And I've paused her just before she's got into this, but the concept of two genders is incorrect and medically has been disproven. Likewise with the concept of two sexes, it's been medically and biologically disproven by the fact that intersex people exist when it comes to the conversation about sex. Intersex people exist, and, well, there's so many variations of that you can't just go, oh yeah, male and female are the only things that exist. Because what are you counting that down to? Chromosomes? Because sometimes people have XX, XY, XXY, sometimes people just have X. There's a plethora of different things, and if you want to discount them and exclude them from the conversation because they're such a minority, that kind of makes your point moot, because all of us are a minority, right?
I'm gonna say, you know, you identify as a different gender, it has to be one of those two,
That's
which
the
would
big
make you a
Why?
transsexual if you're actually trans. I think it makes about as much sense as saying that bisexual is under the straight umbrella. It's like, no,
What?
that's a separate thing, and I think there's beauty in being separate things. There's beauty in having your own lanes, and my concern is there's so much, clearly, as we see today, really heated conversations about trans people that when you start adding in queer theory, non-binary, it just makes it muddy, and the people at home, don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Here's the thing.
I think people do know what they're talking about. Uneducated people, maybe not. Partially our job. I mean, we shouldn't 100% be solely responsible for it, but it's our job as trans, non-binary, queer people to explain and to educate. We shouldn't have to do it all the time. We should have our cisgenders and our straight allies in order to be able to sort of back us up, so we don't spend our entire lives educating people on things. But I disagree with these, especially saying bisexuality is the same as saying someone's under the straight umbrella. Absolutely not. That doesn't make sense. Just because someone might be in a heteronormative or like a hetero-presenting relationship doesn't mean that they're straight by any means of the definition, or by any means. So, interesting takes, that's for sure.
About a lot of the people who identify as non-binary, so to speak, when they do so, they typically don't medically transition.
Right.
And when you do so, that at that point, it's a costume.
Whoa!
It's gender nonconformity, right?
Whoa! I'm sorry. Oh, this is an interesting one. Non-binary people do medically transition, but that doesn't make them inherently specifically trans because they're underneath that umbrella, right? Saying that it's a costume, what am I? Am I not trans enough? Am I fucking culturally appropriating trans people because I had top surgery, because my dysphoria was so bad that I had to go through so much like mental health and like so many issues which caused me so much stress and anxiety throughout years of my life? Am I not trans enough? Or are non-binary people that are considering having top surgery but not being on any sort of hormones, like myself, are they not trans enough? Weird take on that. Yeah. Is it cultural appropriation? Am I culturally appropriating trans people because I've had top surgery? Or those non-binary people that haven't gone through any sort of medical additional transitions, are they culturally appropriating trans people? Interesting.
And so we,
Because they can
Blair's
take
saying-
this off. I can't take this off.
Yeah, as Blair's saying,
I
it's
can't
as
fucking
gender
take it
nonconformity,
off.
Which used to be okay. You can wear what you want. You can present however you want, but it doesn't make you something different. You can't, as Blair was saying, it comes out of queer theory, which is postmodern neo-Marxism, which means
Big
that there's no
words.
such thing as absolute truth. They don't believe there's truth, so it kind of erodes the structure of society. And it's actually really regressive in a lot of ways, because
What?
you end up getting it to where it's literally based off of stereotypes, which we've tried to for so long get rid of.
That guy, the trans guy that's on the conservative side, saying that he can't take it off. I can't take it off. I will always identify the way I identify unless the only way I see myself going in my change of identity, my change of gender identity, is if I start to realize more that I identify as a trans man. And now there's always a possibility of it. But right now, I identify as a non-binary person. I can't take it off. I've taken my chest off, yeah, that's for sure. I've made myself to look how I envisage myself. What are you thinking, that we turn our gender off? Where's the light switch for it? I haven't found it. If someone can find the gender light switch where we can just turn off and on these feelings, yeah, please, like, let me know in the comments down below, because what the hell?
Like, it's okay to be gender non-conforming male or gender non-conforming female, and that didn't make you non-binary.
Gender non-conforming.
When I meet a trans person, right, like a trans woman, a trans man, there is an inherent camaraderie. Like when you mentioned, I can't take this off, part of me almost got a little bit emotional. I know it's hard to believe people think I have emotions, but I really do. And because I saw you in that moment, and I said, you know what, we are similar in that way. We may be different in other ways. We don't know each other very well, but we have that. When I talk to or I'm around a non-binary person, it doesn't really, click. It does.
I wonder what kind of people, well, non-binary people Blair's been speaking to or has had interactions with, right? Because I know for me, unless I'm in a little echo chamber of non-binary people and trans-masc people, a lot of people that identify under the non-binary umbrella and trans umbrella, especially if they're AFAB, have gone through some sort of top surgery, have gone through some sort of hormones, or both. They have gone through medical transitions, and God forbid that you can both be non-binary and trans at the same time. Binary trans people exist, and non-binary trans people exist. It doesn't mean that they should be separated and split into two very different camps, when essentially they're all trans, right? If you disagree with the idea of non-binary being trans, please do let me know.
Doesn't connect because it is so different. So I think that's inherently, I should be able to see some semblance of my own issue within that person, and I don't when they're non-binary at all.
And so I have no issue with non-binary people. I
Good.
just don't think
I hope
that we're
so.
the same.
Yeah, same.
And so when like I was saying before, like when our acceptance rate has completely been destroyed because these people are initiating violence in our name, they're gonna self-ID out of the category, and then we're gonna be the ones left holding the bag.
Whoa, who's initiating violence? Who's doing it? Because, I mean, this is not me saying that trans people and non-binary people can't be violent. Of course they can. Everyone can have violent streaks to them. Everyone can commit hideous and heinous crimes and atrocities. That whole sentence of, I don't dislike non-binary people, but, or whatever it was, and then you lead with something like that, kind of feels like you dislike non-binary people, I'm afraid.
Yeah, it's just, if sex is a binary,
Sex is
and
not
you're
binary.
neither of those, then you're not trans.
Hello.
What?
I think
Oh,
it
we've
would
got
be
the
really
liberals
hard
joining.
for a cis person to truly imagine what it's like to be trans and what it's
100%
like to
agree.
live with that and be born that way. And I'm not non-binary, and so I really cannot picture what it would, because I'm a binary trans person. I can't imagine what it's like to be in between that. But just like how the cis person can't really truly understand that, it doesn't mean that it's not a thing and it's not real. And I really believe that we have like 85 years like on this earth, and like so many people spend so much time being like sad and uncomfortable in their bodies. And if we were just all comfortable, like if somebody like wants to go by a name and like dress a certain way and they are saying, this makes me so comfortable, this is what makes me happy, there is no reason they shouldn't do that. And my God, there is no reason why we should say, well, you're not a part of this, because like this is us and like this is whatever. Because literally like we could all sit here and agree that like non-binary people are like not a part of the trans community or whatever, which is not my opinion. But we could like, that doesn't like change anything. Like there's a whole, we have a vast community.
Yes.
And I believe that non-binary people are a part of the community because I have so many shared experiences with so many non-binary people I know. We have very similar experiences in growing up with dysphoria, with transition, with anything, and nobody has to do anything. Nobody has to transition in a way they don't want to transition. And yeah, like let's be a happy family.
Amazing. I 100% agree with Sasha here. In terms of, you know, I've said it before, and I will repeat it till the cows come home. There's a difference between binary trans people and non-binary trans people, but we all have lived experiences. Some people experience dysphoria. Hell, cisgender people experience gender dysphoria, and they also have some sort of gender affirming care. A breast reduction on a cisgender woman is also gender affirming care. Men getting their hairlines, like fixing their receding hairlines and getting hair transplants and getting beard transplants, that is also gender affirming care because they want to be perceived in a certain way. And yes, people don't have to fit a box of how a man, how a woman, how a trans man, how a trans woman, how a gender fluid person has to look, but there are so many shared experiences, and why can't we all just get on and be happy? We're part of the queer community. We have so much hate against us as it is. I mean, especially in America and especially in the UK. Things are going to be different in other countries, but there's so much discrimination against us and denial that we even exist, and even like, people just murder us for the sake of existing. Like, if that doesn't scream volumes that we need to come together and be a community, then honestly, I don't know what does.
My God, let's all just be happy. That's my vibe.
100%.
Or fight the fight together.
Yeah, like, let's do
honestly,
it. Like,
We have
unite.
separate fights, though. That's the thing.
No,
It's not separate
we're
fights.
weakening our borders by creating this divide within our own community. This is so silly. Look, I actually understand like a lot of the points that are being made here from the conservative side because I grew up conservative.
Oh, interesting.
I voted when I was 18. I voted for fucking Bush. Damn, girl. Like I was conservative. Okay. So we're the same age. So it was not until my later age that I kind of decided, like, you know what? Let me be more open to different types of communication, different types of people. I actually talked so much shit about pronouns, like they, them, all this. I was like, what is this trash? When it first started really coming out, I did not agree with it. I was like, what is this? This is stupid. How can you be a them? Blah, 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 blah.
You were
and I did the
correct.
whole thing, the grammatically. You're interrupting me.
But you were correct. I'm
But
just saying. I'm agreeing with
They
you.
asked you not to comment, and you're commenting. So if you could stop, that'd be great. Thank you. So anyway,
Drama.
as I was saying, you know, so I changed my mind because I got to spend time
Interesting.
around other people who were non-binary, who were non-conforming, and I got to speak with them and I got to experience their life and their experiences. And then I realized myself, I'm like, shit, maybe this is what I've been experiencing my whole life, only because I was exposed to it.
This is it. This person has, you know, they've gone from one extreme to not necessarily the other extreme. I don't know what their life or their lived experiences are, but they've gone from one extreme to then learning and educating and discovering themselves by being loving and by being accepting to the community. Like, it's so interesting to see that people have gone from one side of being very heavily conservative to the liberal side. Now, yeah, it's very interesting to see that, like, fluctuation from how they used to be to how they are now.
If I would have never been exposed to it, I would have never known that this could have been my experience. And I would have lived the rest of my life as a different person, as somebody who I'm not. And it's funny that you keep talking, that some people keep talking about, oh, you need to go through HRT, you need to have surgeries in order to be trans.
Nope.
That is all garbage.
Another thing I never said. It's just so crazy.
Again,
I did.
you're still interrupting me while I'm talking. This is the second
You're
time now.
addressing me,
This
and
is
you-
the second time now.
If you can claim someone said something they didn't say, they should be able to correct you in the moment.
Do you feel good now that you said what you needed to say?
I feel fine.
Wonderful.
I'm sitting pretty. I'm fine.
So, I mean, sometimes it's like the power that needs to hold me back.
I mean, you're
because
appropriating a medical condition. That's what you're really doing.
I exist. I am proof that non-binary people exist and that it is a thing.
I'm sorry, did she just say what I said? We were talking about this earlier. Am I appropriating transgender? Like, am I culturally appropriating transgender people? What the fuck? That's wild. That's such a wild thought to have.
And because I'm sitting right here in front of all of you, I'm a real person. This is my experience, just as yours is the trans experience. That as a trans woman, as a trans man, or as whatever. But I'm not here to belittle your experience or to tell you that you don't exist. And that's the difference between you and I, that you're trying to cancel you. And when I say you, I'm talking about conservatives. And maybe it is you. You're part of the thing. You're part of the thing.
Here's where I get to interject because there's a lot of
okay?
things said about
Stop
me.
addressing her and just talk to everybody.
But what is your dysphoria?
Well, there was some things. Okay. So another complete I don't want to say the word lie, but I guess that's what it is about what I've said here, right? I never said you don't exist. So we can add that to the long list of things y'all have said I've said that I didn't. We know you exist. You're here. You're not fictitious, right? My point is you're different than me, and I don't even think you deny that, but yet when I say it, it's an issue, right? The same way that he said he can't take that off, you can, right? It's different. At the very least, it's different. And when we have a community that there are so many categories, demi-girl, demi-boy, astrosexual, all this shit, but y'all can't fathom that maybe that would be a different category than what I am when we have such different, as you keep saying, and everyone keeps saying, experiences? It doesn't make sense.
I mean, I would personally argue that demi-boy and demi-girl also come underneath the non-binary or the trans umbrella. They're both umbrellas in themselves, and like different gender identities, like if you're some sort of gender non-conforming, it's somewhat stemmed underneath the non-binary umbrella. Now, not everyone will agree with that, and not everyone will want to claim their label underneath the non-binary umbrella, but that's just kind of how it is.
A bisexual is different than a gay man.
Well, yeah, thank you.
Can I ask a question? I just actually want to ask you a question. What is your dysphoria, though? Because gender dysphoria, or sex dysphoria, as I would rather call it, is an uncomfortability between my secondary sex characteristics. Not just what I wear on a daily basis, because masculinity and femininity doesn't have anything to do with being trans.
Yes, 100%, I agree with that.
But that's not true. But that is not true. You can have dysphoria without having to be dysphoric about your sex parts.
But what is your dysphoria?
What is
What
about
is your
anything?
dysphoria?
Straight cis women have dysphoria about their breasts all the time. They get breast augmentation.
It's not dysphoria.
That doesn't mean that I'm not dysphoric about certain things. That doesn't mean that. And you don't know my life. You're not in my life
Well,
daily.
that's why I asked you a question.
You don't know what I
cannot-
experience, the different things that I experience personally.
I cannot believe that I grew up as, you know, this 5-year-old little kid experiencing just crippling gender dysphoria, like horrible thoughts, struggled so much my entire life to be sitting in this room and you're explaining to her what dysphoria is.
I have my experience. It
It's
doesn't mean that I didn't
amazing.
have crippling.
You got a different
It doesn't
experience.
mean
you
that
got a
I
different
might
experience.
suck.
We all have a different. We all have a
We all have
different
different
Which
experiences.
makes us different.
I know, but we're all both not.
Different things. That's it. It's that simple.
We don't
This is
identify as our
heated.
birth.
Obviously, I'm not a non-binary person, so I can't speak for non-binary people, but I can talk about what I've been taught by non-binary people. From what I understand, when it comes to some non-binary
know.
people, sometimes they have to go into the gender binary for safety reasons, depending on the environment that they're in. A non-binary person stepping into this world and dismissing the gender norms of what people think a man and a woman is supposed to be like is so powerful. If you
Yes.
don't want to be mutable to the times of the expansion of the trans and non-binary experience, then just say that. I would rather you just say that you are not willing to move forward, learn the new terminology, learn the new pronouns that come with the trans umbrella and the trans experience for the most part.
So I have an interesting experience with non-binary myself, as someone who has presented as a binary trans man. I also don't take testosterone. So for me, especially throughout my transition, I took testosterone for a short period of time just to get the beard and the aesthetics that I wanted to in my transition. And once I reached those goals, I personally didn't want to lose my access to being able to give birth to a kid, especially with being with my wife for 17 years. We've been wanting to have kids, so I wanted to, you know, have a backup uterus, so to speak. And in that process of doing that, I've discovered a lot about myself and my own identity.
But it's very interesting to see that we have a trans man here that is not on testosterone, compared to a lot of trans men who obviously are. I think the other two trans men that are in this conversation are on testosterone.
What is a man and what is a woman? And for me, when I take a look at the issue in the conversation, there's kind of two things happening. Simultaneously, our community is infighting with each other instead of looking
all the
outwardly
time.
at these structural systems that are actually truly affecting us with laws, politics, access to medical care, and etc. While simultaneously, we see that the idea of fitting into the patriarchal structures, the misogyny, everything that is kind of placed in us, I don't subscribe to that. I mean, all my life have been breaking the rules of what a gender ideology is just by my pure existence. I didn't grow up with the idea of knowing what trans was my entire life. I discovered that actually being homeless. I didn't discover that through some collegiate access to college or influence from others. There was no one around me that knew or that I knew it was trans. I discovered that myself. But as I've aged in my transition, because I've been...
So people don't, I mean, obviously, like, you can learn things from other people, but I feel like gender identity is not something that can be, like, imparted onto someone, if you know what I mean, you know, like, so it's very interesting to see that, and especially when it comes to the education argument of things, and the argument of, oh, you don't want to have trans parents, or blah blah blah, whatever it could be, it's very interesting to see that someone has basically discovered this by themselves with no external influences, when everyone is so convinced that it's so down to external influences.
Trans for damn near almost 20 years now. I've discovered my own fluidity in that area because I actually enjoy my female side too.
Good. So that is the entire section of this debate that I wanted. Once again, the full video is going to be down below in the link if you want to watch the full video. There are some interesting conversations that are going on, so I'd highly recommend it. I know for sure I'm going to be watching the full video just to see whether anything else gets heated. I want to know, based on the conversation here, whether you agree or disagree with some of the prompts and why. Now, if we start sparking a conversation in the comments below, please make sure that it's civil and agree to disagree on things. Everyone's going to agree to disagree, and everyone's personal views are their own personal views, and that's that. I think it's the respectful thing to do, and I think that we should respect one another whether we agree with their viewpoints or not. So, if you enjoyed this sort of video, let me know as well. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll be back for the next video. But for now, I've been your captain, and I'll catch you in the next one. Goodbye.